Wake up, sleepyhead. It's Dev, Mtg. We like it in Magic. And today we got some Neon Genesis Kamigawa spoilers. Is that what it's called, right? Oh, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. I thought they were doing some kind of tie-in or something. Either way, I'm just happy to go back to Kamigawa. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's a nice coffee mug. It is. It is unironically a nice coffee mug. But you're probably also thinking, spoilers for Kamigawa already. Yeah, we just got a few spoilers. And even though these came earlier than your dad, we're not going to get more spoilers until the end of January. So let's talk about these while we got them. We not only got to see the basic lands, which, trust me, is a bigger deal than you think it is. They're maybe the best basic lands Wizards has ever put out. I'm not even joking at all. Normally I would joke about things, but I'm not in this case. But aside from that, there are 3 cards from the set to look at, and all of them kind of look boss. So let's go ahead and get into it. After you like and subscribe, of course, for more spoiler content or just MTG stuff. I do that, it turns out. But let's get to the body of the video, because that's what you clicked for. You want to see some spoilers. So let's look first at Hidetsugu, or I guess the Americanized version. Hidetsugu, Devouring Chaos here is 4 mana, 3 and a black for a 4/4 legendary Ogre Demon. Nice creature types, dude. It's got just a black mana. You can sack a creature and scry 2. But the cool part of this card is that you can pay 2 and a red and tap it and exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. When you exile a non-land this way, Hidetsugu Devouring Chaos deals damage equal to the exiled card's mana value to any target. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. Card doesn't actually look like it's going to see much competitive play. It joins the slew of 4-drops that we've already had access to for years. Some of them have come and gone and rotated out that we just thought were going to be really good. They look really cool, but then they don't do anything. You actually only get to do the cool thing with it like 30% of the time, and it's kind of discouraging. But look how cool the cool thing is you can do with this. Of course, all that said, no amount of logic or reason about how bad the card actually is going to stop me from, like, leveling up a ranger class until I can tell that the top card of my library is an Icebreaker Kraken. And kind of just flinging it at the opponent. And I guess if you have enough snow-covered lands in play, you can just play the Kraken after that and make sure all their stuff stays tapped down. Having a good time, even though that's 4 colors. And at least 13 mana. At least 15, at least, if you want to actually play the Icebreaker Kraken, which you probably do. But I don't care. I just want to deal as much damage as possible off of this in Standard and make it as easy as possible to do so. There are a few ways to look at the top card of your library. It's not like Ranger class is the only one. So I could see this working out, but again, only in like something really fun. But I loathe that part of doing spoilers season and all that is talking about like how competitive a card might be, because deep down I don't actually care. What I care about is how cool is the stuff that a card can do. Like, what's the ceiling on like stupid jank that a card can do? Because that's what I like about Magic the Gathering. And this card has a really high ceiling for stupid jank. So even though you're only going to do the stupid fun thing like 20% of the time that you even play with a card like this, that 20% of the time, it's going to make you feel good. It's going to make you feel so good when you throw an Icebreaker Kraken at somebody's stupid mug and then you play the Kraken. And everybody laughed. It's going to be fun. Oh, and you can sack stuff to him too. I haven't even mentioned that. It doesn't even say sack another creature. So I guess if you play this on 5 mana and your opponent goes to remove it, like, at least you can sack it in response to a removal spell and scry 2 or something, you know. You have that ability. I mean, it's always good to have more abilities. And honestly, that's probably, for practical purposes, the better ability on this card. So there's that. But I guess a 4 mana 4/4 that technically draws you an extra card every turn at a really steep activation cost. But like, still, you know, it's a 4-drop guy that can draw a card. Like, I don't know, it could be worse, but probably could be better. Let's be realistic about it. Could be a better card, but again, that's not what it's about. If you're playing Magic, and every card that you see is strictly about like how competitive this card is. Is this going to see play in Standard? Is this the thing I have to worry about now? No, it's not. It's not that. But that shouldn't be the only thing you care about. You should have a heart for jank. You should. I'm telling you what you should and should not do. But we got more cards to talk about, so we should probably do that. This next card's name describes exactly where I go every time I walk into a buffet, because I am at sushi, everybody. Look, I know that buffet sushi is really, really gross, but I can't help but like it. And that's kind of exactly what this card is like. I don't know that this card is too great either, but I can't help but like it. This is Atsushi the Blazing Sky. It's 4 mana, 2 and 2 red for a 4/4 legendary dragon spirit with flying and trample. And when it dies, you choose one. Either you exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards, or you create 3 treasure tokens. Just like the last card, 4 mana 4/4. Usually those have tended to not be great in Standard. Depending on what you're talking about. I mean, Asika's Chariot's a pretty freaking good card, right? But for the most part, we tend to, as content creators, at least, famously get fooled by some of these 4 mana 4/4s. Especially these 4 mana 4/4 flying dragons. You know, Leyline Tyrant, a couple of others. Like Manaform Hellkite has seen some play here and there, but it's not really a powerhouse. Moonveil Regent was in, you know, the moist Treasures deck, the Teamer Treasures deck. That was like the number 2 deck at Worlds this year, but Moonveil really hasn't seen much play outside of like that one deck. So it's easy, and I mean, obviously 4 mana 4/4 flying dragons go even farther back in the history of not being as good as we thought they would be than like just the 2 cards that I've named, right? So is this just going to be another one of those? I'm not sure, honestly. This could be a very, very good Magic card, guys. Note that the exile ability, the thing that has you exile the top 2 cards of your library, it works like Light Up the Stage or Reckless Impulse or whatever. You know, you have until the end of your next turn to play those cards. So even if you play this and your opponent immediately removes it, you can draw 2 cards, draw 2 cards off of it and still have the ability to play those cards next turn when you untap your mana. So that's awesome. But also, ramp. If your opponent has the removal spell for it, it's going to cost them basically almost as much in mana as you paid for the spell in the first place. It's kind of no harm, no foul. It's even better than that because next turn when you untap, you'll presumably have 7 mana available to cast your Alrund's Epiphany, right? Like, is this better than Unexpected Windfall for certain decks? You know, Unexpected Windfall allows you to play at instant speed and not tap mana on your own turn, and maybe that matters. It also helps draw you closer to an Alrund's Epiphany, and that probably matters a great deal too. But at the same time, this is a pretty big threat that if you're able to play an Alrund's Epiphany while you have this on the table, it's another 4/4 flyer that you're swinging in with, which is good news as far as your clock is concerned. But aside from that, if your opponent does just up and kill it the turn that you played or the turn after you played or whatever, then it virtually guarantees that you're able to play an Epiphany just because of the ramp that it gives you. So if you already have the mana to play the Epiphany, then maybe you choose to exile the 2 cards so that you might dig closer to an Epiphany. That's another way that it's kind of like an Unexpected Windfall. Like if you can't deal with this, you're taking 4 to the dome every turn. Comes down a turn earlier than Goldspan, blocks it, trades with it, whatever. That might matter from time to time. So there's some really good things about this card. It mirrors all the old Kamigawa Dragons, which are some of my favorite cards, literally of all time. Like Kaiga the Tidestar is maybe in my top like 10 cards of all time. It's really the bond I feel with Kaiga, and I love like pretty much all of these old dragons. So I love the callback to flavor. As a matter of fact, if I heard it correctly, if I remember this correctly, they're all supposed to be like representative of their, analogs from the old Kamigawa set. Like they're reborn somehow and have different names. If you care about the lore, I think it's something along those lines, but I'm not the best person to come to for lore. I'm not the best person to come to for analysis, and yet you still do, so thanks for that. But honestly, I think in terms of the 4 mana 4/4 flying dragons that we've seen in the last year or so here, this is actually the best one. I am a huge fan of Manaform Hellkite. I love Moonveil Regent, but in terms of actual competitive playability, I think this thing is just enough of a headache that it's probably the best one of these that's been printed. Because, let me leave it at this. Why is Moonveil Regent bad? It dies. The card dies. Just like every other card. I hate the dies to removal argument as much as you do, but this is just, it's true, right? Like Moonveil Regent dies and doesn't get to do a whole lot of cool stuff before it dies. You don't draw all the cards, right? Before your opponent just points a spell at it. Same thing's true with Manaform Hellkite. You play Manaform Hellkite and your opponent's like, I gotta kill that, and I will. So here, if this guy dies, he does a thing. That's good. It kind of mitigates the downside of a lot of these 4 mana 4/4 flyers. Opponent has the answer, you get something cool. So I really, really like that about this dude. I think you might end up seeing some play. Also, Trample's an underrated ability, but that's all I got to say about this guy. Get him out of my sight. We got one more dude I have nothing wrong. No problem with you. Sorry. That's Sushi. I like your name. Atsushi? That's probably how you're supposed to pronounce it. Atsushi. But I'm an American, so I have to be like, at Sushi. Anyway, let's look at our next card, which is easily the best card of the day, and probably, I'm going to go ahead and call this. This is probably going to end up being one of the better cards in the entire set. So let's go ahead and have our look at Kaito Shizuki here. This is 3 mana, 1 a black and a blue for a 3 loyalty legendary planeswalker, Kaito. At the beginning of your end step, if Kaito entered the battlefield this turn, he phases out. +1, draw a card. Then discard a card, unless you attack this turn. You can -2 Kaito to create a 1/1 blue ninja creature token with this creature can't be blocked. And you can -7 old Kaito here. You get an emblem with whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player. Search your library for a blue or black creature card, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. So the ultimate's good. I just want to say that. I don't usually talk about Planeswalker's ultimates too much, but I do like it as like a flavorful callback to ninjutsu or whatever, and that's fun. And like the -2 ability that makes the unblockable guy helps you get to the dealing combat damage to a player once you hit the ultimate. I don't know. It's a cool emblem. But the first 2 abilities and the casting cost are what make this card really good. You get what is effectively a 4 loyalty planeswalker, but let's call it a 3 loyalty planeswalker. And the cool thing about this is that it protects itself actually in 2 ways. But it protects itself the turn it comes into play by just phasing out. If you've got a 1 or 2 drop, a Suspicious Stowaway, or an Eye Twitch, which are probably going to be pretty popular things to pair this with, then suddenly you just get to like +1 it and draw a card. And then, you know, you don't necessarily have, well, I mean, you +1 it, draw a card, and it phases out. So you may have attacked with the creature, meaning that you don't have a creature to defend your planeswalker, but you don't have to worry about it because your planeswalker phased out, at least the first turn that it's in play. So your opponent basically can't attack this the turn after you play it, which is really sweet. You're almost virtually guaranteed in most situations to untap with this on the board the turn after you play it and get another activation off of it. At that point, you can attack and then draw the card. You can even just not attack, +1 it, draw a card, discard a reanimation target of some kind, or like a flashback spell. Like, who says you have to attack to get value off of this plus ability, right? The plus ability is just kind of fine by itself. Or maybe the first turn it's in play, you -2 it, and it phases out. And then you say you don't block with the 1/1, right? Then it phases back in on your next turn, and even though it won't phase out again, now you can start plussing it, right? You can attack with your unblockable guy, get in, +1 your Kaito, draw the card. You don't have to discard because your guy got through, right? Or your guy attacked. Or conversely, you could just not attack with that thing. You know, +1 Kaito, draw, discard, and then just have a creature, the 1/1 that you made the first turn it was in play, to block for Kaito and help like defend it. So there's like a bunch of lines with this card, you know, kind of however you want to play it. And I love, even though this is probably going to be annoying in practice, in theory at least, I love the idea of a planeswalker that not only is like really difficult to deal with the first turn it comes into play, you know, like you're not just going to invest 3 mana in this, not do anything else on your turn besides like plus it or whatever. And then just it dies. It's probably not going to happen, which is usually the problem with a lot of planeswalkers. So that's really, really sweet, but it's not only that, but it's also flavorful. I like that it's a ninja and it kind of phases out, you know, sinks back into the shadows. That's kind of sweet flavor, but I like the idea that it's a callback to ninjutsu. We'll see how much ninjutsu stuff we get in Kamigawa, but I don't think we have to see too much ninjutsu stuff for this to actually see some play, just because like, everything it does is good. Like, it draws cards, it makes dudes, it is virtually unkillable the first turn it's on the battlefield. Like, oh, that is really, really sweet, and only for 3 mana. Modern and Legacy players are talking about this card already. Like, I've seen Legacy players on Spikes, the competitive Magic subreddit, already talking about, like, I gotta cut a couple of cards for this thing. So you know a card is pretty decent. When Legacy players, modern players, you know, are talking about adding this card here and there to their decks. So I would not be surprised with the setup that we currently have in Standard if this card saw a little bit of play, but it's guaranteed to get at least a little bit of help in Neon Dynasty. So it's just going to be even better than we think it's going to be. I mean, sky's the limit, and it starts from a pretty good baseline. So even if it only gets a few cards that help it out, it's just going to be this ridiculous thing. But just in blue-black, you know, again, like things like Eye Twitch and like the sackable creatures suite that you see in these blue-black decks. Like, I think this is probably decent enough just already. So, huge. I like this card. Huge fan of the stinking thing already. But this is one of those where I get the feeling that we all like it right now, but we're going to get, it has the potential to be the kind of walker that we all get a little bit sick of a couple of months from now. We'll see. You see, what we don't like about Oko is that it's a 3-mana planeswalker that you can't do anything about the turn it comes into play, and it just gets all this value after that. It's like, they print this thing, right? So again, we'll see like where we go from here and how good this card actually is. But this card does actually look alarmingly good to me. Let's look at some of these basic lands, you guys. Jeez, these basic lands. Like, look at these swamps. This swamp with the moon in it is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. Aside from my wife. This is right up there. But every one of these basic lands is like that. Like, look at these mountains. The one with the actual mountain on it. Both of them are beautiful. But the one with the actual mountain and, like, the dragon in the background. Like, God, I want it on my wall. Like, these two forests right here. Like, both of these. I can't really tell which one I like more. I think I like the one where you can see the little town through the treetops. Like, that's cute, but they're both just absolutely gorgeous. These islands, everybody, you see in these islands, you see that waterfall? You see that? Like, I can't, there's no words. I actually saved my favorite for last because do you see these planes? Like, both of these planes are beautiful, but with this planes with the sun and like the butterflies on it, like, I just need that. I need that on every wall of my house. Like, every time I turn around, I want to see this artwork. Like, it is currently my phone's background wallpaper, right? Like, I immediately changed it to this card because this is just breathtakingly incredible. This is like not only the best looking suite of basic lands that I've seen in a long time. This might be the best looking suite of basic lands that Wizards has literally ever produced. I'm totally serious. I think this is like right up there with the absolute best things they've literally ever done in terms of basic lands. So just knocked it out of just completely knocked the ball into the parking lot. Knocked the ball into the stadium in the next town. They're playing baseball and suddenly a ball just comes down and people are really confused. Like, I caught it. Is the guy out? I don't know how baseball works. But yeah, that's how big of a shot. This is the 3-pointer that they hit not only from the parking lot, but from the roof of a Toyota Camry that's leaving the parking lot. That's how good. How you liking these sports analogies? But that's how good like these basic lands look to me. I can't go on about them enough. They are just absolutely gorgeous. But that's it for the Kamigawa Neon Genesis Evangelion spoilers. I'm not ever going to stop making that joke, am I? I need to. But anyway, let me know how you felt about these cards. Am I on base about Kaito? Is that card as good as I think it is? Or is it actually terrible? I've been wrong before. What about Atsushi? I feel like that's the most on the fence card. Like, it's funny. They gave us one card that's obviously like silly jank that's not going to see much competitive play. And they gave us a card that's obviously like, I think very, very good and will see play. And they gave us a card that's right in the middle. Like, you'd be the judge on that one. How do you feel about Atsushi, the 4-mana legendary dragon? I'm going to say that card is good, but you let me know how you feel about it down there in the comment section. But aside from that, share the video around for more spoiler action. Make sure you sub because our very next video is the 5 decks for $5 a piece. We haven't done it in a year. We skipped last year because nobody was playing Paper Magic at all. Like, literally at all. But like now a few people are playing Paper Magic again. I feel like it's good to celebrate the return to Paper Magic with a 5 for 5. So we're going to be doing that next time. Make sure you sub for that content. And aside from that, do any of this stuff. Watch me play some Magic on Twitch. Last time we streamed. My power cut off. I hope that won't happen again. I literally can't promise, but we've been streaming for 17 months, and that's the first time that's happened. So I don't think it'll happen again. Make sure you check out the stream if you haven't yet. And check out the Patreon, just $1 a month to support the content, and it goes a long way to support the content too. So help me out if you possibly can. If you can't, I'm just glad that you're here. But I guess I'm done for this one. So I will catch you cats later. Dev from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.